All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the kapa.ai podcast. Super excited to have all of you join here for the first episode, and much more excited actually to have the first guest of honor here, Steve from Algorand, join us as well for a quick chat. Steve, why don't you say hi and give a quick introduction to who you are and what you do at Algorand?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for having me. Super excited to be a part of this, especially all the stuff you've given us over the last few weeks. So yeah, if I can give back a podcast episode, that's great. As for me, yeah, I've been a software developer most of my life, as far as I'm aware. Got into doing sort of traditional payroll finance stuff for the last 7 years, maybe. Been very involved in sort of like crypto and smart contract stuff since maybe 2017, 18, I guess. But it was always just sort of like one of these background hobby things. I can go even deeper if you want me to go into it right now.
No, that's go for it. I think super
Sure.
helpful, and maybe as part of that for the sort of non-crypto native listeners as well, maybe give a quick intro to Algorand as well as you round that off. That could be super helpful.
Certainly, yeah. So, so that was my past. Oh, I did a degree at uni, electronic engineering. Doesn't really have much involvement in software, but I had some low-level background back then. Yeah, did software development at a financial payroll company for 7 years. Always had an interest in sort of crypto blockchain stuff. Maybe 2019, 2020 is when I decided, oh, let's really get into it. Let's actually start making some smart contracts, start looking at how other people are doing smart contracts. And yeah, I sort of came across Algorand. Been very much an Ethereum fanboy before that. Started getting a bit, I was looking at all these new generation blockchains and going, oh, well, it's very unlikely Ethereum's ever going to get any of this stuff. Let's have a look, see what they can actually offer. Kept coming back to Algorand. Algorand itself is a pure proof of stake blockchain, as opposed to proof of work. There's other proof of stake systems as well. Algorand was founded by a guy called Silvio Micali. He's quite a well-known cryptographer. He's got a Turing Award for co-authoring zero-knowledge proofs. I can't remember when that was, but
Sure.
maybe a decade ago or two. Yeah, yeah. Algorand itself does the traditional things like payment transactions, like most blockchains, all of them, I assume. We also have native primitives called ASAs, or Algorand Standard Assets, where you can create your own assets and send them between accounts as well. As well as smart contracts. So yeah, it's got the full range of features you would expect on a modern blockchain. And yeah, I just got really into it. I was very much a community builder myself before I started working at Algorand. And yeah, that's sort of a high level overview, I guess. Hopefully that gives you enough about what Algorand is as well.
It's very helpful, and I think one thing I'd love to also maybe hear your take on a little bit more is the sort of surprising importance, the surprising role of developers in ecosystems like yours, if you will. Attracting developers becomes super important early on. Keeping them around, providing sort of a good community of help and so on. Anything you can sort of speak to in terms of just the role of developers in an ecosystem like Algorand's?
Oh, definitely. So it's very much two sides, I think, or at least this is my opinion. I'm sure every developer is going to have their own opinion on this, but you when it comes to developer communities, you've got the developer side of it, where for me it's documentation. Like if you have a product, you want people to either use it, like contribute or build upon it. You need that communication. You need a way for other developers to interface with it and know what they're doing. Sure, developers are going to jump into the source code if they want to, but I feel like that's the extreme. That's when they want to get into the nitty-gritty details. It's not documented anywhere, and they want to understand exactly what's going on. But you can't expect every developer to do that. So documentation is key there. and the other side of this is the community, obviously, and what has worked really well for us is Discord, like having that platform that someone can ask a question and expect like almost an instant response. Having that at like high availability, I think that's super awesome as well. So yeah, as long as people know where to find the Discord, or find that you might have a Matrix server, Telegram group, whatever it is. Yeah. But for us, we're using Discord. Having developers know where they can ask the questions, that's super important. And finding details in the docs, that's super important as well. And I guess without going too far onto next subjects, I think that as a big part of what we do on Discord, like a good 50% of the time, not just like Algorand workers and my colleagues and stuff, but even the community themselves, if someone asks a question, I can guarantee you 50% of the time, someone is going to go to the docs, find the right answer, and then paste a link to it or copy and paste the text. And that's going to be the solution. But yeah, those are the two big things for me when it comes to building a community. Having good documentation, having that high availability platform where people can come and ask their questions, get answers, super important.
That's really, really interesting to hear, Steve. I mean, do you think this aspect of sort of having a highly available sort of community team is a differentiator for ecosystems like Algorand versus other sort of competing chains?
Yeah, so I mean, back when I was just a builder in the Algorand ecosystem, yeah. I don't think I expected there to be people in the Discord channel to specifically answer questions. I just took it as a place of community. Like, this is where I'm going to find like-minded people building on the same technology, asking very similar questions to myself. And I think over time, like in the last 2 years, the Algorand Discord especially, like key people have sort of picked up as being like the individual to ask on particular subjects. They have knowledge on very particular things. And yeah, we've ended up, I guess it's coincidentally, we've all ended up working at Algorand, answering a lot of these questions now, like as a primary role. But yeah, I just think having it available for community members as well as specific, I guess, people who work at Algorand answering these questions, they have their own benefits. In terms of availability,
yeah,
you're always going to get an answer if it's going to be community driven as well.
True.
Fortunately, some of us are in the US, some of us, or myself, I'm in the UK. One of us is probably going to be able to answer your question, whatever time of day it is you ask the question. But having that community aspect of it as well, someone's going to get an answer to you.
That's no, I definitely see you and Ben and the rest of the team in there, always with a response at hand too. So super cool to hear your take. Maybe to sort of transition the conversation a little bit forward here as well, Steve, and almost put on our forward sort of looking glasses as well. I mean, there's so much happening in community. I mean, you mentioned you sort of started focusing yourself just 2-3 years ago full time on sort of really taking, building on Algorand and similar very seriously, right? And that's only been 2-3 years. So things are happening at a crazy pace at the moment, right? Where do you see, community being in the next 2 or 3 years? How do you see that evolving for say, your team?
No, exactly. I think it's going to be much of the same, but probably just more accelerated. Because my experience isn't just within Algorand. Like, I participate and get involved in all sorts of projects all over the blockchain ecosystem as well as others. And Discord, having that instant communication is key as far as I'm aware. Like, as far as I'm concerned, if I have a question, I'm going to go to their Discord server. Because that's what people want these days. Like, forums are great. They used to be great. I feel like they are still great in some, like when you want a long-term conversation, but most people just want that instant response. They have a problem. They're going to they want an answer to it. They've probably got an error code. They just want to find the answer. And forums aren't great for that these days. Like if you go to a forum and it's just someone that's created their account 20 minutes ago and they're saying, this is an error code I've got, it might be like 4 hours until someone's replied to them. And in that time, they've probably solved the problem themselves and they've probably moved on to something else. They might not even need to solve the issue anymore. And a forum just isn't great for that sort of question these days. It's much more faster moving. It does unfortunately lead to, especially in Discord, a lot of the same questions being asked all at the same time. And I think that's where like Kappa comes in. Is going to be super helpful, because whilst all those answers exist and they're in the documentation, even if they're in prior conversations, that would be great as well. Like extracting that information and just replaying it, almost just giving that answer to someone who's asked a very similar question. The answer exists and it's out there and it just needs to be delivered to them. That's very much where I think it's going to go, for sure. People want that instant gratification of like an answer to their solution to their problem, and it's just going to keep going this direction.
No, that's a really, really cool take, Steve. So you're almost describing sort of a shift away from the classic discuss forums. You'll see a bunch of projects have sort of transitioning more to instant Discord. Hey, I have a question. I expect someone to at least interact or provide an answer somewhat quickly. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
That's super. No, that's super helpful. And I mean, maybe to close off here as well, I would, as Finn and I, my co-founder, we've been super thankful for working together with you and the team over the past couple of weeks to iterate and sort of build out the prototype here for kapa.ai, this chatbot trained on your documentation. Would love to hear any immediate reactions there as well. That could be super helpful. And if there are any advice for other people that might be considering using something similar, on where it works well and where perhaps there's still room for improvement, if you will.
Yeah, certainly. So I've been following along the whole ChatGPT stuff for a while, always seeing like the new article, the new news articles coming out claiming something big, and sort of following along, reading about it, playing around with OpenAI and Bing AI now that it's out, and it's super cool. Like the whole technology is so fun. It still feels like very early in terms of what it's capable of. But there's huge value to it already, and we've seen it already. Like we've added it into the Discord. We have given answers to people that satisfy their question completely. I think there's going to be, probably the biggest like change that needs to happen is the user's expectations. In like, we've seen people come in and just ask stupid questions that have no relation to the blockchain, or they're asking questions that don't have an answer in documentation. They're not technical questions. And it's just, I guess it's just a novelty. I feel like eventually that's going to wear off. People are going to start understanding how you communicate with a chatbot like this. And then they'll get the answers that they need. And yeah, if there was one of these in every Discord server that I went to, it's awesome, because now I could go to the docs and find the answer, or I could just ask the question to a bot and it would find the page in the documentation that we need to go to. So yeah, it saves a bunch of time, but I guess it's just knowing how to ask the right questions. Yeah, and the novelty. Once that's worn away, once people start treating it the way they should, it just becomes super valuable, super useful.
No, I appreciate the feedback and input, Steve. And we were definitely Finn and I, sitting here quite excited when the initial barrage of questions came from all the wonderful folks in the Algorand community. The first 24 hours, that was it's quite entertaining to see the bot handle all these different questions that it was not necessarily trained on.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, you can tell almost immediately like how valuable it is as well. When Ben and I first got into our Slack channel and we were asking it questions, like the first few responses you get from a couple of questions, you immediately see the value and you go, oh, this is perfect. This is exactly the answer you need to give to someone that has these problems. And I think we were probably expecting more errors. Like we were going to expect a much higher rate of failure than what it currently delivers. So I think it exceeded our expectations by quite a margin. And like I say, it's only going to get better, right, as well. As we hopefully see the places in the documentation that that are lacking, we can then update those, and maybe even like ingest in some of those answers that other people have had that have given on the chat site itself on Discord. That's another great source of information that you could pull in from as well. So I just see it getting better. It's already super valuable. It's going to get better and more useful. And yeah, it's super exciting to see.
Cool. Well, thanks a lot for your time and the input here. We're of course super excited to keep collaborating and building out a lot of these features here we're talking about. But I just want to say thanks a ton for your time, Steve. This has been super insightful, and I think there are lots of interesting takeaways, especially for other community builders, on how to think about keeping an active Discord server alive here.